Tracy, and thank you to everybody for pulling this together. So, very simply, Scott Miller, I'm an associate dean at Ohio University. I'm director of a program called the Appalachian Semiconductor Education and Training Program, ASCENT. And we are thrilled to be partnered with Zane State and Mid-East Career Center and the Belmont College, Hocking College, and a number of other folks to try to build up the workforce for Intel. They're funding this. And the focus is not just on semiconductors, but on manufacturing and lots of STEM-related career fields. And trying to get young women into these career fields is a big part of this as well. So we're thrilled to have you all here today. My colleague, Chris Kolke, and I are just going to sit back and listen. We are non-participants, but want to thank you for coming out and sharing your feelings and your thoughts about working in STEM career fields and in manufacturing, and just really appreciative of your time and Tracy's time and our moderators and our panelists and other folks. And so we are going to videotape this. I think you all knew that, so appreciate that. You giving us your thoughts so we can capture that. We're going to use that for marketing and social media purposes. We will be getting together again in February, and that'll be, we hope you'll join us for that. And that'll be a larger event at that time. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
Brenda, our fabulous facilitator, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, all of you. It's a pleasure. I think I got to meet most of you. I've had the pleasure of working with Tracy over the years and also Katie on many things, and have worked with Scott and Chris. So it's wonderful to be here today and have the chance to facilitate a conversation about women in manufacturing. I've spent a little time in manufacturing myself, so looking forward to hearing everyone else's thoughts about their career journey. We're going to have a little icebreaker today too, and I warned a couple of you about this. So Thanksgiving food. So you're going to tell your name, your company, and your favorite Thanksgiving food as kind of a way to break the ice. So I've already talked about myself, my company. I'm here representing my own company today, D. Byers and Associates. My favorite Thanksgiving food is probably kind of strange, but mac and cheese, because I just love mac and cheese and I can eat it all the time. When my grandmother was still alive, it was probably her homemade noodles, because she actually cut them and made them herself. So that's a little about me. So Lindsay, if you don't mind, let's start with you.
My name's Lindsay Johnson. I'm a full-time student at Zane State. And my favorite Thanksgiving food is, I was going to say mashed potatoes, but we actually make noodles. So that would be my favorite.
Okay, excellent. Didn't mean to bias you there.
And I'm one that I will jump in and put people on the spot, and Lindsay's able to handle it. But would you like to tell them a little bit about what programs you're in and how you got, just briefly, to she's currently in the bachelor's program?
Yeah, so I graduated last year with my associates in electrical engineering, and this is my third year, and I'm in the bachelor's program at Zane State. So.
And what grade are you in?
I'm a senior in high school.
In high school.
CCP.
Oh, really?
I was doing CCP.
Just throwing that out there.
Sometimes I forget that. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
I'm Isabella DiMotto. I'm also a senior in high school for the CCP program. I'm in my second year of my associates, for electrical engineering. And my favorite Thanksgiving food is probably green beans.
Green beans, just regular green beans, not green bean casserole? Okay.
I am Maya. I'm in my second year of the electromechanical engineering program. And my favorite Thanksgiving food would probably be apple pie.
Thank you. Renee, how are you? Name, company.
I'm doing well. How are you?
It's great to see you. Thanks for being here today. So,
thanks for having me.
You know how our icebreakers go. So name, company, and favorite Thanksgiving food today, Renee.
Sure. So my name is Renee Conley. I am with the ASCENT Powder Company. I'm the talent acquisition specialist here. And probably my favorite Thanksgiving food would be broccoli casserole.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, Renee. You're an important person to have around. We're going to make sure we get to talk a little about ASCENT Powder later today and what you all do, because we were talking a little earlier about how some companies are a little less known than others. So we'll make sure you get to talk about some of the exciting things that ASCENT Powder can do.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. I'm Katie Good. I'm the Chief Administrator of the Southeast Tech Prep Regional Center. My favorite Thanksgiving food is sweet potato casserole. All that good crunchy, sweet
nuts.
goodness on the top. Yes.
I can't eat the nuts.
The marshmallows, okay.
I am Tracy Porter. I'm the Dean of Workforce Development here at Zane State College. It will be hard for me to pick just one, but I'm gonna have to go with Spelling.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
I am Haley Cochran. I'm here from Hivac Corporation, and I'm an engineer there. And my favorite Thanksgiving food would probably be deviled eggs or mashed potatoes with gravy.
Ooh, good choice, Haley.
Gotta be with gravy.
And Haley, we're gonna make sure you get to tell a little bit about the cool things that Hivac does as well, because I'm not sure everyone here necessarily is familiar with Hivac. So we'll make sure you get to talk about the cool things that Hivac does as well. Thanks for
and I
being
did
here.
forget to mention that Jolinda Kistler wanted to be here today. She's from McWayne Ductile. And I have her answers, so I'm gonna be answering for Jolinda when we get to these questions.
So Tracy, AKA Joe Linda.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Stephanie Jones, I'm a regional manager for TC Energy. And my favorite Thanksgiving food would probably be deviled eggs. Like, I'm in a deviled eggs era. There's like a whole TikTok trend for like deviled egg flights. I'm on it.
I've been so frustrated because eggs don't peel like they used to. It's so hard to peel the eggs, but somebody told me the other day to cook them in my Instapot.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way I
And
do
I'm like,
mine.
oh,
And they peel away.
I'm gonna be trying it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be trying it. And I will also mention that Stephanie is also a Zane State College graduate. She was one of two, my daughter was the other one, females, to graduate from our oil and gas engineering technology program at Zane State.
Excellent. Thank you. And Stephanie, definitely we will want to hear about TC Energy, because none of us can work without having energy out here to us. So we'll look forward to hearing about your important work as well. Thanks for being here. Marquita?
All right, we're Keita Thomas, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at Zane State, and also the Executive Director of a Cradle to Career nonprofit that Zane State has anchored called Enterprise Mosquito. So I say that because those two areas intersect, but I am brand new to the college. I've only been here 6 months. I don't even know if it's been 6 months. I spent the last 29 years at American Electric Power, so I come from business and industry, and I'm really excited to be here, very passionate about workforce.
Thank you so much. Thanksgiving food. We're not gonna let you off the hook.
Oh my goodness, so something that hasn't been said is banana pudding.
Okay.
Oh, with the vanilla wafers?
Chessman cookies and vanilla wafers.
Okay. So we have a mix of sweet and kind of other traditional foods here today. Got it. All right. Well, that's good, because we have a mix of skill sets and a mix of ages and all of that as well. So looking forward to a great conversation. So we're just going to start off with a few questions, and feel free to jump in. We're not necessarily going to ask every question to everyone. We're just going to kind of have some questions, conversation, and maybe some things to kind of follow up on some of those. But this first one I think is important as we think about where we're trying to go with ASCENT and some of Tracy's work here and some of Katie's work with Tech Prep. And that is, what inspired you to pursue a career in either the manufacturing industry or the energy industry? What was kind of your inspiration, and how did you sort of start thinking about that as a career choice?
I know for myself, right, at the time that I decided to come to Zane State to go to school for oil and gas engineering, I was in the middle of just being a young person in general, right? I was 24, I had a husband and a child, and I needed to support my family a little bit better, right? And so I thought about, what is longevity? What career has the longevity that I'm gonna need to be able to raise my child and my family? And so when I came here to the college, I was just kind of looking, and of course you could go in the medical field, or you could go into all these other things, but I really looked into electrical engineering, and then I looked into the oil and gas program, and I thought about the oil and gas program, and basically what you said, right? Like, energy is going to be around for a very long time. Natural gas being a fossil fuel nonetheless, but a long-term fossil fuel that we can bring to all of our manufacturing businesses, all of our power plants. We're seeing a big spike in coal-driven power plants being converted over into natural gas-driven power plants. That energy goes into manufacturing facilities, which goes to the consumer. So that's really where I was at, was what's gonna be around for a long time, that I can have a solid career. I didn't want just another job, I wanted a whole career.
Excellent. Thank you. As a quick follow-up, Stephanie, as you were going about that research and kind of that process of exploring those careers, what was most helpful to you as you were kind of making that decision or gathering that information on which to make your decision?
At the time, I think it was opportunity. How much opportunity was in the area, how many jobs were on the job boards, those job postings that had requirements, right? And I didn't exactly meet those requirements at that time, but if I went through this program, this 2-year degree, I was gonna meet those requirements, and really it was just availability of positions in the area.
So really looking at that data and kind of seeing that data and saying, I could get there, but I'm not there yet because I don't meet those qualifications. But if I go to this pathway and this training, suddenly I now qualify for those jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? What inspired you to pursue a career in either energy or in manufacturing?
I have Jolinda's answer.
Yes, Jolinda, aka Tracy.
Jolinda says, prior to receiving my bachelor's degree, I worked in a couple of manufacturing facilities to put myself through college. I frequently envisioned how I could improve processes, policies, support, and represent manufacturing in a more effective way. And once I obtained my bachelor's degree, I began my professional career as an operations supervisor for Kraft Foods.
Thank you. So she had actually direct career experience that kind of got her sort of started. Okay. Anyone else?
I can share. I think that Jolinda's comment about getting through school, that's why I went to AEP, because I was looking for a way to pay for college. But I will say that I'm from Steubenville, Ohio, and so Ohio Power, that brand, that name was familiar to me growing up. I knew people who worked at Ohio Power, so it was something that living in Columbus, Ohio, I could connect to really easily because I was familiar with the organization, and then I just ended up staying.
Excellent, and that ties to a conversation a couple of us were having a little earlier, that some folks like Stephanie who are in the energy industry, a lot of those assets are buried. So people don't necessarily see TC because pipeline is buried. And we were talking about HIVAC, there are other companies such as Toyota, for example, or Kenworth, who also make trucks, who are much larger. So that brand piece is really important in your decision making, Marquita. So I think for us companies maybe who don't have as much of that brand awareness, how do we go about creating more of that brand awareness and letting people know who we are and what we do, because it can be a difference maker, as we just heard from Marquita here. Anyone else have something to share about how you chose? Lindsay, yes.
So I don't work anywhere right now, but I'm a student. So I chose this career because of the opportunity. Like you said, it was a really good opportunity, and I was just a sophomore in high school. And if I could do it, I wanted to do it. So I like being at the college a lot more than the high school. More like freedom, I guess. Not as much homework. Yeah. But yeah, the opportunity. It was a really good opportunity, and it still is. I mean, it saved us a lot of money and my family, and I've already got my associate's degree before I even graduate high school.
Thank you, Lindsay. So when you say it was a good opportunity, what made it a good opportunity to you?
CCP.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the CCP program was the
Yes.
difference maker for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you think you had an interest in general in engineering or math, or what, as a freshman, like what was your favorite subject in high
Math.
school?
Math,
Math,
for
and so
sure.
that kind of then
Yeah.
directed you more into engineering, right?
Yeah. So I wasn't sure about engineering. It kind of seemed like engineering, that's like a really wide range of jobs you could have, but I met with Heather Shepard, and she helped me kind of single it down to exactly what fit me the best.
And what do you intend to do after school?
I'm not sure
What's
yet.
your hope?
I was actually, my most interest right now is protection, schemes, protection, the math in it. I like math a lot, so hopefully something with that, but we'll see.
Gotcha.
Excellent. Anyone else?
I was, I don't know, since as long as I can remember, I was like taking things apart and putting them back together, like even when I was young.
Okay.
Like VCRs, anything, like building stuff. And so I was a sophomore in high school, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just kind of wandering aimlessly. But in school, I remember we had to build a simple machine, like with pulleys and levers and stuff like that. And I did it. I didn't think much of it. I just did it. And my teacher was like, "That's the fastest I've ever seen that done. Have you ever thought about becoming an engineer?" And I was like, I don't know. I mean, like, I'll look into it. And so that's kind of where it fell very naturally to me. I have a very curious mind. And so I think I wanted something that didn't have a cap on learning. Like, you could learn forever. Like, you're not going to ever know everything that you need to. And so that's, I think, what really attracted me into it. And so then I went on and got my 2-year degree, and then I've been working for 5 years. So that, I don't know, I just kind of, I don't know, like I said, it fell into me very naturally. So, and I love it, I do.
Yeah. Well, so that teacher, though, kind of planted that spark and recognized that opportunity and said, hey, I think you've got an aptitude here. Maybe you should think about a career in this field. Yeah. So again, how do we think about those influencers who are out there right now and plant those seeds with those influencers that someone's got an aptitude here? Let's recognize the aptitude regardless of their gender. Let's recognize when there's an aptitude and suggest a career path.
And I think that's critically important, that we really need the systems, because we don't have enough like guardian angels that open up the door for every single little girl or child who may express an interest. So if we really have systems in place that can help identify those, that makes it so that many more people can walk through that door.
Well, is College Credit Plus or dual enrollment part of your story, or?
Yes, yeah, it was offered, and I did take college credit classes while I was in high school. I didn't go there full time. I was still at the high school full time, but they offered like college credit classes at Waterford, where I graduated from. So then I already went to college with some credits, and I did graduate like a semester early, but it wasn't necessarily a goal of mine to finish early, like while I was in high school. That opportunity was there, but I didn't really do that. So I did go to college for 2 years after high school, and then.
But you had some accumulated college
yes.
credit. And I say that because I was hearing a theme here, and because I personally know Stephanie, I know dual enrollment was part of her story as well, because she did graduate high school with a degree.
I did. And I went to Washington State, so that was my dual enrollment. My initial degree was in liberal arts with a history, I guess, concentration, right? And then shortly after that, I followed suit with a pharmacy technology certificate from there too. I really had no idea what I wanted to be when I was 18 years old. But I think that's important, right? It was an opportunity, like you said. It saved my family a lot of money. I already had all of my core classes, those gen eds, under my belt, so I didn't have to go and repeat any of those when I came back to school. So I do suggest looking into that for teens, and I'm really interested in your program, this cradle to career, because I think that's going to be an important part of that too, right? Is just offering that opportunity to as many people as we can.
And I think, Stephanie, your point, and combining that with Marquita's, with having those systems in place so that students can be on that path and accumulate the right credits towards their ultimate goal is really important. So additional support and systems in place for high school students to identify aptitudes and interests and get them on that path early is really important.
Renee, do you have some thoughts around your career path and how you arrived at the manufacturing industry that you might want to share with us?
Sure. So I actually started my career out in elementary education.
Okay.
So from there was a shift in some personal issues. So I had to make more money. So from there, I started as a manager for Girl Scouts for 5 years over 3 counties. Where there I did a lot of community outreach in the schools and did a lot of events and worked in the public a lot. One of my volunteers actually worked at a manufacturing facility, and she was like, hey, there's an HR opening in recruiting. I think you would be a really good fit for it. So I started out in the food manufacturing and immediately fell in love with it. Workforce is my passion. I still get to educate the youth and be in the community a lot. So manufacturing is where I see myself in the future. So from the food manufacturing, I came onto this opportunity here at Awesome Powder, and it was a little bit better opportunity than what I had originally had. So I took this position, and here I am.
Excellent. And tell us about Austin Powder, because I don't think a lot of people really have that awareness. I've been fortunate enough to get to visit Austin Powder, so I think it's really an interesting place and a cool facility. So tell us about Austin Powder.
So we are located here in MacArthur, Ohio, which is Benton County. We've been here since about 1947. We do manufacture commercial explosives for the construction sites, the mining, the quarrying, those kind of things. We did have 5 production areas here. We have recently cut down to 4 production areas. So we have a PTN plant that makes our powder, and then we also have like a cast booster production area, and our emulsion and our mix plant area. We currently have 247 employees here. About 40 of those drive trucks for us. We are globally, so we're all across the U.S. But however, we are the only U.S. manufacturing here in the U.S. We're the largest here in the U.S. That's a little bit about Austin Powder.
Thank you, Renee. But yes, so if you see an Austin Powder truck on the road, which I have seen lots of them on the road, now you'll know it's heading somewhere to potentially blow something up, right, Renee? So kind of cool. So the thing is, I think the reason I wanted to bring that up, and definitely want each of you to get to talk about, your companies as well, is that I think we've got to build that brand awareness like we talked about earlier. People don't know, and Renee has been excellent at some different events about trying to build that brand awareness of the company, because there are a number of different pathways open to women. So even once that door is open, then what's the best pathway for you to kind of step through as far as the company that fits you best? Because there's so much diversity out there within companies too, so.
And then I also feel like it's not only Zane State's responsibility to educate our students in their fields of study, but also to show you what jobs are out there and available, because I tend to feel like people, including myself, only know what they see, right? I had no idea, I know that explosives exist and that you need them, but I have never thought about, well, somebody has to manufacture those. So that is a career opportunity that maybe one of you didn't know existed, and maybe you like the idea of using your education to manufacture, design, create new, create safer, create all these different things when it comes to explosives. So interesting. Thanks for asking that question. I'm glad you did.
Sure. Well, we definitely want to do that. We want people to understand. I think sometimes there's this misnomer about manufacturing or industry or energy, and we were talking about that a little earlier. A couple of us were that manufacturing just means one thing, and the reality is there's a number of different types of manufacturing. Energy doesn't mean just one thing. There's a number of different types of careers within that broader industry category. So I think your point, Tracy, about career awareness is really important, and we've already heard about some of that today. For someone to be able to recognize that, and for some of our female students to have exposure to the opportunities that are out there and available to them, is just really critical. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. And since we're on the theme of talking about current companies, how did you end up working at your current company, and what do you enjoy most about working there? And I think for you all who are students, we'll adapt that to how did you kind of end up in that career pathway, and what do you enjoy most about it so far as students being in that program?
For me, yes. Can I go?
Yeah, absolutely. Go, Renee, please. Thank you.
No, as far as what I enjoy here, for me, it's definitely the people and getting out to, educate the youth about what we do, as well as, the different boards that I sit on, and just working in the community. I'm all about, people. So that's what it is for me.
Excellent. So it's the people. So that's the other piece, I think, that there are a number of different career pathways even within manufacturing, right? There's something for you if you like people. There's something if you like processes. There's something if you like equipment. There's a number of different other opportunities even, as well as a number of different companies. So if you like people, there can still be a place for you in manufacturing, is what I'm hearing, Renee.
Yes, and when I talk to the youth, I always let them know, like as far as here at the Austin Powder, there's so many different avenues. I mean, we have our support staff, anywhere from accounting to, the business operations, the business analysts, our engineers, we have security, maintenance, we have a garage, we have boilers. I mean, we have a wide variety here. So, that's what I always tell them. And we have, truck drivers too. So I always try to tell them, there's lots of different opportunity, whichever it is that you're wanting to pursue.
Excellent. Thank you, Renee.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
I'll answer for
Jolinda,
Jolinda.
AKA Tracy.
Jolinda spent 11 and a half years in operations roles and 2.5 years in a safety environmental role. She always wanted to be in human resources. However, at that time, it would have required her to relocate, and that was not an option for her. And as assistant HR manager role opened up at Clow Water Systems, which is now McLean Ductile, she applied. Fortunately, she was offered the position, and her career began in a completely different path. It was a very scary move for her, leaving a company that she'd worked for 14 years, but the move was the best thing that she could have done for her professional career. What she enjoys most about working as the HR manager at McLean is that every day is a new day and experience. She loves what she does and who she works with. McLean has been very supportive of allowing her to manage her department as she sees fit. McLean also has allowed her to grow professionally in many ways, which she is very thankful for. And I will just also interject, and you can probably back me up on this. Her and her department have worked really hard to flip the script and the narrative at McLean and to actively recruit and pursue women to work at McLean, because they realized that it was a really good opportunity for women and they were not getting near as many women applicants as men. So they actually were intentional about recruiting and changing policies and procedures and the way they do things internally to make it more attractive to females. And while I can't speak 100% for Jolinda, I have had conversations with her, and those efforts have reaped some really good benefits, and they've been able to recruit more women who are now in an occupation, in a field, and have a job that they can support their families with upward mobility. So.
Thank you, Tracy. Well, in McLean, quickly, Tracy, feel free to chime in. Ductile iron pipe.
Yes.
So more of a foundry metal casting type of environment. So again, another diverse type of manufacturing available to us here, which we have a lot of metalworking throughout, the Appalachian corridor of Ohio in that manufacturing sector.
Tracy, I think you hit on something that is very, very important. So corporations who are looking to recruit in non-traditional people for those particular fields absolutely have to think about their internal systems, their internal structures. And I'll give you an example. So when I was at AEP, I was over learning and employee development. And we stood up a program called Women in Line Work. And it was because we did not have women coming through the doors that were applying for those jobs, and it was literally 1% women in our frontline apprenticeship programs. And as we started looking externally, like how can we recruit women, we recognized early on that it couldn't just be about recruiting and developing a good training program. We actually had to do a lot of change management. We had to do a lot of leadership development and preparation so that the current workforce will be prepared to receive the women that were going to be in the program, but also to sustain that so that we could keep them. Because we recognize that work like line work and manufacturing, things like that, it's legacy work, it's lifestyle work. A lot of times you'll hear this was passed, my granddad was a lineman, my dad was a lineman, my uncle was a lineman, right? And so that's how I got to this role. So as a part of doing that work, we actually really lobbied hard to really think about the shifting of the paradigm for who could be successful in the role. And the conversations we would have is, hey, if you're thinking that you may have wanted to be a nurse, you might be interested in line work, and nobody ever makes that correlation. But nurses work shifts. Nurses have to lift heavy, right? Nurses work on crews and teams. And so when you can help make those connections between different types of experiences and curiosities to an actual role, it changes everything. But you absolutely have to think about, who do we see being successful in this role? And if we've always thought that traditionally men would be successful, you've got to do the work to change it. Because if you don't do that work, it doesn't set up the ground for women to be successful in the role.
So in other words, we have to ensure that the culture is set up appropriately to, number one, encourage women to pursue these roles, but then number two, to be successful after they get there.
Absolutely.
What does that success look like, and how do we make sure that we have appropriate support in place?
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any of our students have a thought to share about how you kind of arrived at your current career path and what you like about it?
I just had a strong passion for like science and math,
Okay.
and I found out about the CCP program because when I was a sophomore in high school, in band there was a senior who went through the program as well, and I found out through there. But my school hadn't advertised this program as much as it should have, so I didn't even know it was an opportunity. But I'm glad that I did get the opportunity to start things off earlier than I could have and have it paid for, and it's just a really good opportunity.
Yeah. So in your case, it was that word of mouth that made the difference, though. Another student telling you, because your school didn't necessarily promote the program or promote that pathway, you had that interest in science and math, but you didn't really know that door was out there until another student shared that experience and said, hey, Isabella, this might be for you. So again, those other students can also be really good influencers in the importance of bringing back, graduates and others who have been successful in those pathways to connect with students, or possibly even out to the classroom to say, here's the opportunity that I pursued, and here's how I did it, and here's why I did it. Can be really important. Thank you, Isabella.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Isabella. I've always loved science and math, but at like my home school, we focus on in middle school, we're learning Inventor and AutoCAD. So I kind of knew I loved that. I excelled at that, and it just came easy to me. And I always looked forward to it. I always loved it. So when I heard about Zane State, I was like, that could be perfect because that's what I love to do. And I love the science. I love the math. So it kind of all worked.
So loving the science and math, and then that early career awareness made a difference for you because you were getting exposure to things like Inventor and AutoCAD at a very young age when many others may not have been. Was that approximately middle school maybe?
Yeah, like 6th grade. They started
Okay,
teaching me.
so middle school, and that's something that we have had some conversations recently with companies about the importance of that middle school career awareness, that starting in high school is too late. We have to start younger because sometimes we're planting those seeds. Students are making decisions. We have several people here today who have talked about their journey with College Credit Plus, so we have to really start younger because for you, that was a really big impact.
Yeah, that's awesome because you start looking at colleges when you're a junior in high school, you're sending out like, applications and stuff when you're a junior, and I wasn't introduced. I actually helped the teacher develop like kind of the class of CAD, and that's what we did. We did AutoCAD and stuff like that, but that wasn't even until I was a senior in high school, and even then we were just getting it started. There was like 2 people in the class, and we just kind of, honestly, like, watched YouTube videos. We were just getting started. Like, we didn't know anything about it, but there wasn't an opportunity until I was a senior in high school, and then by that time, most people have already chosen like what they're doing. So that I was fortunate enough that I chose it before I got to the class. But yeah, that's awesome that that's middle school. That's when kids are most curious. Like, that's awesome. I'm glad that opportunity was for you.
Giving that. Well, and it sounds like in this case, Haley, it was really important that teacher let you kind of learn on your own, because you mentioned earlier you really had that passion to learn, and the teacher was willing to let you kind of go to YouTube and kind of steer a little bit of your own direction and your own learning at that point versus being kind of stuck to a script, if you will.
Yeah, and then, the year after I graduated, I was talking to him, and he's like, yeah, we got like 3D printers and like a laser, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, I just graduated.
Missed out on all the cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I come back?
Yeah.
I'll come back and be a guest speaker or make something on that 3D printer now, right? Because now I've got the skill set.
But they're getting there now. But like I said, the opportunity just wasn't really there whenever I was in school. But
absolutely.
And I do think that's a very important part of this conversation is that you mentioned 6th grade, because we have a hard time sometimes getting across to people the importance of, they're like, well, they're sixth graders, but look, because CCP has requirements, and that's a common theme that we're hearing, and CCP has requirements, right? So you have to test into college level math and English. If you had not been put on that path in the sixth grade, then you would not have been properly advised to what math to take that would prepare you to be eligible for College Credit Plus and to be able to have the opportunities that you now have. So I think that's an important note.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that there's data out there. I'm not going to quote it because I don't know for sure, but anecdotally, you know, hearing that girls typically tend to like separate themselves from the math and sciences and those STEM, for various reasons, but that typically happens in the 5th grade. And so trying to figure out how to get connected to girls to kind of continue to nurture that curiosity. It's great that you had that opportunity in middle school. I love that. We have to figure out how to foster that.
Kind of how to do that before that separation happens.
Yes.
I think, you know, as girls, as young girls, you get nervous, right? When you're in science and engineering and math classes. And so fostering that curiosity and that excitement earlier so that you don't even have the opportunity to pull back as a junior high student or anything like that.
Just to build, I don't want to hold us up on this question for too long, but one of the things that I do appreciate about TC Energy, and one of the opportunities that I've had within my company, is to participate in what we call our community action teams. So that is our corporate giving strategy and putting, dollars out into our communities to kind of foster workforce and development of those communities. One of the best portions and focus groups within our community action team is STEM. And our STEM guidelines right now for being able to donate to a school or something is the STEM program has to foster education from 3rd to 12th grade. So that's kind of building on that, right? So we're trying to capture them early. We're trying to capture being able to invest in those programs before there's that separation and really kind of foster that learning environment for those folks.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about something I think that would be of real interest to our listeners as well, which is what advice would you give to women interested in a career path like yours? Be that energy, be that, as you all are with students, be that manufacturing. What advice would you give to other women who might be interested in a career path like yours?
For me, I would just make sure that they know to be confident in what they're doing and love what they do.
Okay. And what does that look like, Renee? How do you show that confidence and that love?
For my position, it's, educating the youth, letting them know, like when I go out to the schools or whatever it may be, when I'm doing an event, talking to them, yes, about what we do here, but also, about what I do. And then I get lots of questions, how did you get in that field? And then some girls will say, how much money do you make? And they don't have no filter at that age. But I think it's really important educating, our youth at a very young age about manufacturing. I mean, there's a huge array of opportunities that they just don't realize. And when I, talk with them and let them know, engineers, like, they can make really good money. We have one woman engineer here. Out of all the engineers that we have one. She started out, right out of college, making $100K. Like, where do you make that at? And so, I try to, speak to that and be happy with what I do. And I also, sit on the board of the Manufacturing Coalition. I vice chair that. And I also sit on the VC Works board as well as the Area 20 board, Workforce Development. So with the VC Works board, we have a youth committee also that we've started. So I'm always educating them, letting them know, what they could potentially make into a career.
Well, I think one of the strengths you bring, Renee, is you're very approachable. So at that
Yes.
age, students don't have a filter, but I think you try to be very approachable, that students feel comfortable asking you those questions and that you're willing to answer, you know, and give them an honest kind of perspective too. So I think that's another strength that you bring. And then I also heard, and I know you do a great job at this, getting out there and being involved is really a great way to let other women know about those paths. You've got to be out there and involved and kind of be visible.
Yes, 100%.
I'd add something. I remember when I first got the role of leading technical skills training, and I had a 40-year line worker pull me aside and said, you know, I want to tell you something. We used to hire from the neck down. We no longer hire from the neck down. So as you are preparing the training and you're managing all of this, know that we hire from the neck up. So what I would tell women is, if you thought that manufacturing, you thought that energy, you thought that any of those technical fields was really about your brawn, your muscle, and your back, that's not like that anymore. It's highly, you know, it requires a high level of acumen, a high level of engagement, very technical. It's really about using your brain. It's not so much about using your back. And I think sometimes when we think about manufacturing or working in plants or working in the field, you think it's all about the muscle and, oh, I'm not that physical, I don't have that capability, but it's about your head, right? It's about your smarts, your problem solving, your teamwork, your leadership. All of those skills that you bring to the table are critical to success in that particular role. So I would say, don't count yourself out if you feel like you don't want to be physical.
I think that's a great point, Marquita. Just speaking from my own experience as a sales manager in manufacturing, I think women also bring a different perspective. Men, I think, sometimes can get caught up in, this is the way we've always done it kind of thing. Women, I think, come in with a fresh perspective, at least I did when I was at my company, and said, why are we doing this way? We're just account managers. We don't go out here and think about how we're going to hunt for the next opportunity. We're just kind of sitting here waiting for the phone to ring. We're never going to grow the business doing that. And they never really thought about that. So I think women bring, just what you said, a different perspective, different aptitudes, different attributes to the table. And I think those are much more appreciated in this day and age, perhaps, than they used to be. And I think companies are looking for that, because they realize it's a very competitive world, not only for talent, but it's a very competitive business world out there. They've got to have the best people at the table, regardless of gender. So I think they are looking at that in a whole different way, perhaps, than they used to.
Yeah, that's to me true diversity, right? It's the diversity of thought. It's not just about, you know, race or ethnicity. It's about that thought and what you bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Jolinda has a couple things
Oh,
here
sure.
that I'll share. So she says that there are so many opportunities for women in manufacturing, and when she joined McWane Ductile in 2014, there were approximately 4 or 5 hourly female employees. And then as of today, they have approximately 50 female hourly employees. So that says what they're doing is really working, but I think she says that companies need to tailor their job postings and promote positions in manufacturing, and most of the females work in the departments where the jobs are most physical in demand. It's hot, it's very hot there if you've ever been there, due to the molten iron and the longer shifts. But what they have been able to do is promote more females, from now that their hourly female numbers have went up, into salary inspector roles at the company. So while they started in production, she has been able to help them see a pathway and that upward mobility within the company into those salary roles.
And that's just a couple other things I've heard today, is that one of the other things we've got to promote to women is these are great jobs. These are good quality jobs. Lots of us today have talked about how these are really quality jobs with family sustaining wages. We have good benefits in these jobs. We have to get the word out, I think, as to these good jobs, the quality of the job, and what those environments look like, because I'm not sure everybody necessarily understands that. And then I've also heard a lot of stories today about upward mobility. So you don't just start one place in these jobs, but there is a chance for you to advance your career too. So I think for people to understand those opportunities to advance is also really important. Any thoughts from our students over here around what you think would really be helpful to let more women know about the opportunities available to them?
I would just say, like, find your strengths, find your weaknesses. I mean, I'm a girl's girl. I wear dresses all the time, and I like dressing cute, so I don't like getting my hands dirty. But you don't have to.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different opportunities that you can. There's so many different jobs you can go into. Like, you don't have to do the heavy lifting. I mean, if you want to, yeah, you can. But whatever you like, it's gonna be there.
Yeah. So that self-awareness and really knowing yourself and what you want that path to look like is also really important, which again kind of ties back maybe to some of our career exploration and really having the chance to learn who you are and what you want to do. Excellent, thank you. Anything else?
It's also like a good opportunity because with getting into college earlier, you get to explore your interest earlier because I learned from the first semester that I didn't really like mechanical engineering. But I like the electrical part more, and it let me discover that early on instead of when I'm 18 and switching my college major 5 times.
Yeah. So again, you getting in early helped. Excellent. And you got to explore those interests a little sooner than if you would have waited. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Well, let's think about how do we mentor and cultivate that next generation of manufacturing and energy career leaders?
Well, Jolinda says that they have a mentorship program in which they share information about personal and professional growth. And they had an event in 2022 where they had an external group come in and interview the females, and then they published a lot of that information. They included pictures of their females on the job and told their stories and had that included in a media package for the company. And so I think that's fantastic. And they use all of that information in their job ads and their position descriptions too.
Excellent.
TC Energy is very much doing the same thing. We have a women's energy network, and that's just a localized employee group within our company for all the women to join and just kind of share and get advice and things. We also have the Elevate Her program, which is a direct mentorship program with small groups, virtual and in person, since we're across 3 countries. We do offer the virtual portion, and those are really kind of focused on empowerment and development, networking opportunities. Right now, we are in the midst of a turnover within our mental health champions group, so we have that opportunity for both men and women to join, but we seem to be seeing a lot more women join that group to be our mental health champions across our footprint. And then we have really kind of put into place with our inclusion and diversity initiatives and things like that, a goal for ourselves for women in leadership. And since we've kind of focused on getting more women in our leadership positions, we've seen some natural mentorship things kind of fall into place, right? So me personally, I was in operations, heavy in operations for many years as a field technician, but something that has really benefited me within TC Energy is I've always had a direct uplink that was a woman. And so I've always had a mentor in a management position, a leadership position, whether it's direct or indirect, further up the line, that I've been able to converse with, kind of pick their brain. Hey, where do you see me going in the next few years? Or can you help me make my developmental goal for next year? You know, now is end of year for us. We're talking about how we met our goals for 24 and what to plan for 25, and part of those developmental goals is having those conversations. What can I do? What should I train on next year? You know, where do you think my strengths and weaknesses are, and how can I work on those for next year? I definitely would say to make sure that goal setting and accomplishment is part of your future.
I love that. I think that one of the things we learned with the Women in Line Work program is that you have to have mentors at different levels. So as a woman, you need to have a technical mentor, so someone else who understands the technical aspect of the work that can help support and guide you through learning and development, but also having that safe space of someone who is, I can just talk to you about my childcare issues, or I can talk to you about how I'm struggling on my crew and can give you some good insights and support. So I think making sure that companies think about some wraparound supportive services at every level in the journey, and not just when you're new, but when you get to be a seasoned employee, when you're trying to advance your career, when you're looking at different pathways, that support needs to be there. So figuring out how to do that.
And while I've never quote unquote worked in manufacturing, my department of Zane State, the Center for Workforce Solutions and Employment, we work with a lot of manufacturers and helping them identify training needs, doing needs assessments, and then helping them find the direct contacts and relations. Sometimes that's developing curriculum for them, or whatever that may be. And she did not pay me to say this, but Dorinda used to be my supervisor, and she led that department. And having a mentor is so important on multiple levels, and I think not only for females, but I think specifically females. And Dorinda, your approach to when I worked for you, she took me everywhere she went. Every meeting she went to, she offered me to go. She offered me things like tooling you, like you want to understand hydraulics, pneumatics, and what we're talking about in a room because you don't understand, take this class. Because she wanted me to really understand what I was doing. And had she not taken that time and taken the role of the mentor, and she still is today, as you can see, she's still here for me, I was able to build a network. And a network is important as well, in addition to having mentors, is building that network of people that you can reach out to when you need something, or when you need help, or when you need to bounce an idea off of. And that isn't always found within your company. You have that bigger network within an industry or a sector partnership, or your classmates from school that you stay in contact with after. But I did just want to step in and say that I believe that mentors are key in so many things in our career, in our education, in our personal life, and all of these different things. And to understand manufacturing, I would have never be leading the department now that I once worked for Dorinda in, had she not been that mentor and filled that role. So I'll take this moment to say thank you.
Well, thank you, Tracy. And I do think mentoring is really, really critical. So I think as we think about how we're going to get women into these careers, what does that mentoring network look like? And how do we create those intentional, I would call it, connections? Because I'm curious, do any of you students have a mentor right now?
Not specifically.
Not specifically?
There's the internship that I work at. I work at Westerville Electric Division as an electrical engineering intern. But there's a lot of, they're also like moving to hire a lot more women. It's a lot better to have the connections with women, because even just in class, like it's a lot easier to talk to like my few female classmates than it is the male ones. And I feel like having a women mentor is a lot easier than for a man. I feel like it's an easier connection.
But it sounds like, Isabella, you've had to look to make that connection on your own. It
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily something that the company facilitated. You sort of had to make that connection yourself and
Yeah.
kind of start reaching out and kind of finding those other people, those other women specifically, that could really be that mentor for you. Yeah.
And I think that probably is like also would be internally here at Zane State too. You guys have had to seek out other females in the same kind of courses. That wasn't anything that Zane State intentionally facilitated for you or created opportunities for you to make those connections. You've had to do that work on your own to make the connections with each other and other girls in the program.
And if you don't have that, obviously you're here today with some individuals you might be able to stay in touch with or network with. So as Tracy said, Stephanie said, Marquita said, I think that's really important. Seek out those connections because it's going to be helpful to you, especially the more I think you advance in your careers, having those others that you can bounce ideas off of, having those others that you can seek guidance from. It's gonna be, I think, really important. And so for us as educational providers or career awareness providers, how do we intentionally nurture those connections? Because it sounds like right now they're not necessarily happening. Unless your company maybe has a program put into place, you have to maybe take that initiative and figure it out for yourself. Haley, go ahead.
I was gonna say, whenever you were asking about advice and stuff, it's just recognizing that you deserve to be there just as much as like any of the men. Like, you're just as qualified to be there. And it's like, if something that was a big struggle for me is I had to learn that, like, when I go into a conversation, I was 19 whenever I started working as a production engineer, like directly working with these men that are building the trucks and stuff, and I was like the only one there. So it's like I was walking into conversations and I didn't give respect initially. Like, men walk into conversations and they have respect to begin with. Like, you have to earn that. And that was difficult for me. And now, but I also never had the mindset that, like, I didn't even realize this was, I don't know, kind of difficult. Like, I didn't realize that women in STEM were rare. Like, I looked around and I was the only girl in class, but like, I didn't think like, oh, woe is me. Like, I'm the only girl in class. It was just like, it was what it was. Like, and I just went on. And now, 5 years later, I actually have 2 people that are twice my age under me. Like, these 2 guys work for me. So it's like, I don't know, I never had the mentality that it was challenging, because that would have set you back to begin with. You just take it for what it is. And like I said, you have to recognize that you deserve to be there. Like, I'm the only girl in meetings. Like, I'm the only one even still in like doing these things, but I don't even pay. I mean, I didn't realize it was difficult until someone asked me, how do you do it? And I'm like, how do you not do it? Like, I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? You just can't go in with that mentality, because we all just deserve to be there. I mean, like I said, and you said perspective, when we bring perspective into it, I think our mindset is a lot more detail oriented, especially in electrical and stuff like that. I mean, like, we are a lot more detail oriented. So when I was designing things, you mentioned AutoCAD, I work with Creo every day. I design things with Creo. I could tell how different and like how big of an asset that I was, because my mind works so differently than these men that were designing the same things as me. I could just tell, like I said, I was a lot more detail oriented, as women are. I mean, so that it's just a huge asset to have all these different, you said diverse minds in these workforces.
Yeah, I love this. Like, you see it as an opportunity and not a challenge.
Yeah.
And I would have to say, and this is me just making a guess, but if anybody wanted to also chime in, I would think, and this is a 100% guess, first of all, you are the anomaly, I think, in some of those things, but for every one of you, there's probably 10 females that are just as capable,
Yeah.
but maybe didn't have the courage to say, I belong here. And they ended up in careers that they're probably not happy with, they're not doing things. And I think those exist. We've talked a lot about younger females today, but I think there's a group of females that are currently underemployed. They're working in jobs that maybe are family sustaining, but probably not. But they have minds that work, and those are a very a sweet spot for recruiting women, multi-generational aged women, into careers in engineering, because I do believe that you probably are, not that, you know, that you have so many that are probably not having those same conversations.
Yes.
I guess to build on that a little bit, you know, I think about manufacturing and energy, but manufacturing in particular, right? So if I think about manufacturing, I think about efficiency. How are we going to put out product efficiently? And to me, if you're going to have a work management or an efficiency conversation, I think that one of the seats at your table should be a mom who's got a couple of kids that play sports and she's trying to run a checkbook and make sure that dinner is on the table and homework gets done and the taxi service is running. Because who else is going to be able to manage that 15 to 30 minute gap that you might have somewhere in your day where you could put out a whole other product? So I try to correlate those things, and I say, like, do we have the right people at the table to have those conversations? And I think that's an important part of that inclusion and diversity, right? Where we go for experience instead of physical diversity. tell me your experience, and I can tell you that a woman like that should be at your table if you're gonna have an efficiency or work management conversation.
I had a mentor tell me once in, I think it was my second real job, if you want something done, find the busiest woman that you can find and she'll get it done for you.
Yep. Well, but I mean, that's the reality, right? So you talk about, they have a whole different mindset.
Yeah, for sure. I will just, Dorinda, if you don't mind, take a couple minutes to capture some specific information I think would be helpful to Ohio University, that's where Chris and Scott come from, and for Zane State, and to get your input. What do you think colleges and universities are doing well in this space as far as girls in engineering and STEM? And how do you think that we could improve what we are currently doing to not only get women here in our programs, but to keep you here, help you get to the finish line, which is your degree, and ultimately a career in engineering, which is the whole reason that you come, right? The end game for you guys is a job. So what are we doing well, and what could we do better?
I think there's a lot of opportunities that are promoted well, like this focus group, and then Maya and I have also won an Intel scholarship specifically for women. I feel like things are being promoted very well. I think that just needs to be continued to like promote spaces for women in engineering.
Great.
I like the environment, definitely. I don't feel like some classes, like in the BSET program, bachelor's program, I am the only girl there, but I don't feel like I'm the only girl there. I don't feel different. Some conversations you just have to join in, but it's part of, I mean, any work field, you have to just step out of your comfort zone sometimes and just do it. But I like the resources that I have, like some of the 2-year teachers, I still go to them with questions that I have or advice that I need. So I guess they would kind of be somewhat like a mentor, but not permanently. So that's really helpful to have like a safe environment, and I don't feel unincluded in a lot of things.
Good. And would you say, if you look back at your high school classrooms or even your junior high classrooms and envision what your classmates looked like, you had other girls, would you say that there were probably girls at that time that thought the same way, loved Inventor, loved what you guys were doing, but maybe didn't make the same leap that you guys did, for whatever reason that might be? Or do you think you were probably just the one?
I was kind of the
Okay, good.
Question, do you guys, we talked about internships before we came over. Do you feel like you want more support, or are you getting the right levels of support in terms of career advising, getting connected to internships and opportunities?
I think we could always use more support. Sometimes I have to ask maybe for opportunities, or like we just had that job networking event, which I really enjoyed, but I don't know if it really helped as much as I expected it to. So maybe
Yeah.
more outreach for the students.
I agree, probably just more, because my internship, I found it out through a classmate that was already working there, but I do like the steps that have been taken to include it more.
Is an internship required? Okay.
No.
It was, I began working at, HIVAC, because it was, an internship was required. And I can't remember X amount of hours, but that's why I worked there as an intern for a year and then got hired on full-time afterwards. It was a requirement to do so many hours as an intern.
All of our engineering programs have either an internship or a co-op or something that can be used as their required technical elective, but none of our engineering programs have a mandatory,
Okay.
which sometimes I question.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it might be a good idea to make that mandatory. You're kind of forcing them to get out there and just do it.
Yeah, because I have gained a lot of experience, like connections from the classroom to the workplace that I didn't have before. It was definitely an adjustment. I feel like it would be good to push
And I
that.
think that's probably part of the, because sometimes, and I always say this in particular about College Credit Plus and dual enrollment programs, it's almost just as important to figure out if you don't like that kind of work before you put an investment in paying for your tuition, for a bachelor's degree, or to go into a career that you're just not going to be happy. And I think an internship is a great way to test the waters, to try different things. I always think of like your rotation in med school, you have to go spend time in peds, you got to go spend time in the ER, you have to do all these things to find where you fit, where you really excel. And I think internships are an opportunity for our students, although sometimes we only have them for 2 years. It's not like a university, you have them for 4 or 5, and you can require 2 or 3 internships while they're in those programs. But when we have our bachelor's program now, that's a little bit different, because you can start as a freshman and potentially have 2 or 3 really good internship opportunities, which would lead you to where you really want to be and where you can excel.
Yeah, I was very fortunate also, because I would just give them my class schedule, and I would work when I wasn't in class, and then I'd go to class, and they knew like I was in and out. But I was just very fortunate. I'm just so glad that I had an internship, and that's awesome that you guys sought out those opportunities, because it really is nice to be, I don't know, forced to work, like forced to put yourself out there and apply to different positions and then go work them. It's really nice.
It's the ultimate win-win situation, because I was on the other end where I ran the apprenticeship program in the co-op. Companies and businesses benefit so much from having that opportunity. It's like a 2-year interview, right? So even if it is for just the time that you're in your 2-year program, you get an opportunity to learn the culture, you get an opportunity to network and build bridges and make connections. That's immensely beneficial to a corporation, because it also reduces their training and development expenses. So it's win-win.
Yeah, it's part of those 3 E's, right? So education, exposure, and then experience.
Yeah,
And those years of exposure and experience are critical.
And I am terrible at speaking for people, especially people that I know, so I'm gonna speak for Stephanie real quick. Ask her to maybe elaborate, because while the oil and gas degree also did not have an internship requirement, Stephanie was one of our students who we were able to send to a conference, and it was the Eastern Gas Compression Roundtable Conference, and they paid the students to go, they paid for their hotel, they paid for their travel. So I think it's other opportunities and experiences there, because I'm not sure, and you can answer, but what was the crack, boom, bang, what was that thing that you learned when you was there about compressing gas, because you sucked it, you did something.
Do you really want to say this on camera?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my, this is embarrassing. So it's the process of combustion, right? So a combustion engine or a 4-stroke engine is suck, squeeze, bang, blow.
Yes.
Which is intake, compression, combustion, and then exhaust, or the actual 4 steps. It's a little bit dirtier terms. Thanks for that.
But that nice little thing that she
something-
learned at the EGCR when you interviewed.
At TC Energy. My initial interview for TC Energy was to be a compressor station operator. And part of that, one of the questions that he asked was, tell me your maintenance experience or your mechanical experience. And I'm like, my dad taught me how to change the oil in my car, does that count? And he was like, well, what do you know about like 2-stroke engines, 4-stroke engines, or a gas compressor? And I'm like, here's my opportunity. I'm in this room with men that are interviewing me, and I hope they got a sense of humor. We're going with it. But to be honest, they understood exactly what I meant.
They're like,
and
yes.
It was the proper time, the proper audience for that factoid that I had picked up. And honestly, I think it was part of the reason why they took a chance on this random girl who wants to come in and work in a compressor station, right? But yeah, I mean, that little bit of exposure or that opportunity to network and to learn got me to where I was.
Because I think that added piece in your degree about compression specifically was just an add-on to what she was already learning at Zane State in her program. but you know, it just gave you more information, it gave you more knowledge. You met people
Yes.
there in the industry, because it wasn't only for students, it was for the whole compression and natural gas industry. So there were a ton of employers there, so that was beneficial as well. So I always try to encourage, I encourage all students, but really encourage girls too. Anytime somebody says, hey, there's this free workshop, or there's this conference, or there's this, like Lindsay, you said about the networking, maybe it wasn't exactly what you thought it was gonna be, but it was an opportunity that all of you guys took advantage of, because if nothing less, you walked away with some contacts and some business cards that you began to build your network. And while this isn't female related, I did have a student in the EET program, a male student that made a contact, and he's found himself unemployed, and he was like, oh, and he was able to just reach out and say, hey, I met you at the networking, and this is my current situation. And so now it's looking like he may get an internship there as a stopgap until he graduates, because he had some stuff going on. So just take advantage of any of those opportunities that come along, because what can it hurt, right, Stephanie, to learn a funny little anecdote? It might land you the job, right?
There you go.
I think one thing, thinking back, you know, Tracy had commented that Haley was kind of the anomaly, like you're one of a kind, and I think everybody here, both Stephanie and the students, are that. You said yes to be here, right, and share your thoughts. You guys are very successful at a young age, as are you guys. So is there anything, because I come from an outsider's perspective, similar to Tracy, I'm not in manufacturing, but work very close, but come from more of an education perspective, to capture more of those female students who aren't the ones that always say yes, who aren't always the ones that are willing to volunteer or show up or do an internship, to really kind of fold them in to this world that you guys are all living in. We've talked a lot about internships and mentorships, but that's once you're in it. Like, how do you think back, like how you might be able to get more interest or more excitement amongst other girls?
So, I'm sorry, can I talk?
Yes, please do, Renee.
So for us, we do partner a lot with the Ohio University Athens, you know, for our interns, for engineers. Recently we did like a field trip for the engineers. They came and did like a tour, and there was like 7 of them, but they really appreciated it. And it was a mixture of, there was only, I think there was only like 2 guys, and then the rest was women. But they really appreciated it. They asked a lot of questions, and we actually was able to secure an internship with one of those individuals for this summer. So I think, you know, showing them tours, you know, getting out there, and not only having the students do tours, I think it's important to have the teachers, professors as well, so they understand more about manufacturing.
Thank you, Renee.
Spoke about opportunities, obviously, too. Did any of you guys shadow in high school or know what that is? See, that's a really good opportunity that I had also, is when we were in high school, sophomores, or I think you did it once when you were a sophomore, and a senior, junior, senior, somewhere in there, but twice we shadowed an occupation, and then we had to present about it and stuff. And that, so I have girls that shadow me now. I mean, the high school students that come in to work and sit with me for the day and get a permission slip, and I walk them around the plant, and I'm not necessarily teaching them my job, they're just seeing what a day in the life is. So actually I shadowed a mechanical engineer, and I reached back out to him whenever I graduated, and I said, hey, like, I became a mechanical engineer, thank you for inspiring me. And then I shadowed, I think, a nurse or something like that also, just to kind of see, you know, different fields. That was another really good opportunity, because like I said, I have young girls that shadow me. Now Darcy sends me emails all the time saying, hey, someone wants to shadow from the college, and if it's a female, they send her to me. But that's a really good opportunity too.
I'm curious, and this would probably be for you guys, but do you think that like that shadow, I'm assuming, is like a point in time? Do you think that there is a necessity to kind of build like a journey where you know, you're wrapping your arms with a specific girl or a group of girls, and you're kind of like taking that journey where so it's not just like every, you know, I guess once in a while I see you, but how important is the journey type mentorship and relationship too?
I think it's very important, and I think a lot of these, I don't know, I don't think I really had a you had mentioned taking the initiative and becoming that, and I think even within these conversations, I don't even think I realized how much I had done that before until we're talking about it, because I coach also. I've coached 3rd, 4th, all the way up to junior high, high school basketball and volleyball. And so I, tell them, they ask me what I do, or I'm late to practice or something running in, I'm in my, my work clothes, and they're like, what, they ask, then they gain an interest where I work, and I tell them I'm an engineer, and they're always like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, I guess, I didn't realize how, because like I said, I never had a mentor either, so, I would consider you guys now my mentor, because I'm still so young, but, I see those girls, every day, and then I'm helping them, foster their curiosity and whatever they want to do and stuff like that, so it is, linking up, with young girls and, kind of taking their arm and saying, this is a possibility. I think I've done that some unintentionally by just telling the girls in 4th, 5th, 6th grade what I do, and they probably didn't even realize that was an opportunity until I mentioned it to them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The reason why I ask is because we did a summer camp this past summer, and it was a human-centered design project. And we had girls and boys, in the camp together. And they were really excited, but then we don't see them, and I may not see them until next summer, if at all. So that's the reason why I asked that question is, does it make sense? Would it be more helpful to have more of a journey and a relationship as opposed to just, I attend this event or program and get exposure?
Or I had you in 4th grade volleyball or basketball or whatever that is. What would that journey look like if you had 2 girls that were really, and you had that next step to take them to, and then that next step to take them to, and how do you stay connected to them when they're no longer on your team?
Yeah, and that's what I do tell them, they can shadow me. I said, when you get to high school, shadow me if that's what, you want to do. So it's building those links and connections from whenever they're young and planting those seeds and stuff. Because I see their reaction every time, and I think I was extremely fortunate to not realize that was so rare. But every time, they gasp whenever I say that.
In that instance, it was really good that you didn't know what you didn't know.
That's why I think I was out of a little bit of an advantage, because I didn't even realize it. So.
So is that something do you try to find a way to partnership and bridge the gap there? Is it a once a month take a student to work, right? Where you get assigned this student, or even within your programs here at the college, where they come once a month instead of just one time in the year. And that way, whoever the mentor is that's assigned to them, they can try to really kind of show that journey, right? Okay, let's see a project through, and each time they come, you get an update on this project, and either they make contributions or they just kind of see it through with you to show what it's like to actually be in this position. Or, your 4th grade basketball girls, oh man, that's so cool. You're like, hey, come to work with me for a day.
Yeah.
We've got this program.
And it's schools recognizing too that it's not just missing a day of class. It is building a mindset to their future. It's not well, you're gonna miss reading the 3rd period if you are not here this day. It's fostering something that could go on to be their career. That's why I think too there needs to be a shift in mentality in that, because as long as they have the right mentors, they're not messing around for the day or running around. This stuff is so important. It's more than just missing a day, or like she said, once a month. To me, you couldn't spend enough time with someone in a position that you're looking to go towards. So it's having schools recognize that it's not, it's more than just missing a day of school.
Right.
I think once a month or something like that would be great.
When both of you, Stephanie and Haley, hit on something else, and Marquita, I think Tracy and Katie also, which women I think are more willing to bring their entire selves somewhere. We don't leave our personal life behind when we go to work. We talk about, in my case, I don't have kids, but here's what I did with my nieces and nephews over the weekend. The point is, because you were willing to bring your whole selves to work, that was a different conversation that led to some great opportunities for you to have a connection with those students that otherwise would not have happened had you not been willing to have that conversation, kind of racing in late, or you had the childcare issue. We don't kind of compartmentalize ourselves, I think, in the same way I think that men do. So bringing our whole selves there and letting people see that, and that authenticity, I think, can also spur some of those connections.
And I think just having, and not that you need permission, but you do sometimes feel like you need permission to have those conversations, or sometimes to bring your whole self to work, right? And it's okay to say it's different for men in manufacturing than it is for women in manufacturing, because that is the facts of it. It's not a made up narrative, it is the truth. And it is much more easier for me to have a conversation with Marquita or Stephanie about who do I need to talk to about where I'm gonna pump. Because I'm not having that conversation more than likely with a man.
Right.
Like I need that person to know who to go to ask, like who to go to say, hey, I realize and I know that I am making 50 cents on the dollar compared to the men that work at this company. Where do I need to start that conversation so that we can change what is happening here? And it's not just within manufacturing, but you know, that is a different atmosphere. You know, it's easier probably to have a conversation if I work at an insurance agency than if I'm working on the floor with molten steel, to have to raise my hand and say, hey, every 3 hours I need a 20-minute break. And for that conversation to be okay, and for me not to be afraid to have it with anyone.
Well, and I think that ties to something else we've talked about today. We have to get a little more comfortable with stepping outside of our comfort zone as women. I don't think we often do that enough sometimes, and supporting each other to do those kinds of things, I think, is really important, and being able to support that next generation that here's some things I kind of learned the hard way. So you don't hopefully have to do that, right? You can benefit from the mistakes that were made over here and opening up those doors so it's comfortable for everybody to do that, I think, is really important too.
I think that also comes from, like she said, like you belong there and you're not any lower than the men that actually work there. You know, you have like the same mindset, I guess, as the men would have, so you deserve to be there just as much as they do.
And one thing is always, well, I mean, metaphorically they were saying sitting at the table, but like quite literally sit at the table. Like whenever I was first hired, in our kind of meeting room, there's a long table, but then there's chairs that surround the outside. And I have never once sat in a chair that surrounds the outside. Like, and that, I mean, those are things that you have to do because you literally deserve to sit at the table more. I mean, I was in a chair, so the guys that had worked there longer than me had to sit and at the perimeter. Like, but that's the mindset that you have to have. And now years later, I'm at the head of the table. So it's like you have to, you know, plant that seed in your head and visualize that before you even get, like, whenever you first start.
And don't wait to be invited to the meetings.
Yes.
No, that's what I was gonna say.
Don't
Yep.
wait. So
I have never waited to be asked to sit at the table. I just sit at the table.
Yeah.
There was coming from a company that was dominated by engineering and men, and that I am neither of those, but you have to, find ways to get close to someone so that you can ask the question. So it's like, hey, I saw, and I used to call it calendar surfing. Like, I know this meeting and this conversation is taking place. I'm super curious about it. So I wasn't invited, but I am going to say, hey, I want to be a part of that conversation, and just ask. The most that anyone can tell you is no. So I'm not afraid of a no at all, never have been. So making sure that you're ready to step up to the plate. And if you're curious about something, find a way to get to the table. And sit at the table, don't stand around the plate.
That's right, because the answer is always no to a question that you don't ask.
That you don't know.
And I think, Haley, you hit on respect earlier and how you earned respect. So talk a little about that. I'd like to hear more about how you actually earned that respect, because that's some of what we're talking about here. And I think men are very good at just assuming that they have a place and just assuming that what they're going to do adds value. I think we as women sometimes have to prove that we're going to add value, and we have to earn that respect. So how did you do that? Because you're in a little different situation than some of us here with engineering. So how did you actually earn that respect? What did you do, would you say, that made the most difference in earning that respect?
It was, and like I said before, I got in very early. I mean, I was 19, fully thrown into production.
Exactly.
And then, I mean, COVID happened, and so, like, there were some people that left to go with their families. So the engineering department got down to like me and 2 other guys. Like that's where it was. It's built back up now. But like it's the way, I can't explain it more than it's the way that you carry yourself and the way that you speak and the way that you enter the room and from the first time that you shake someone's hand, like that is how I carried myself when I was walking down the aisle of the floor. And they, and the way that you type emails, like, you know, it's not timid. Like you deserve to be there. I can't stress that more. And so but I could tell that, especially being a young woman, I didn't walk in with respect because they had been working there for longer than I had been alive. I mean, quite literally. And so and then here I am telling them, you know, kind of what to do or my opinions and stuff. And I could tell that they were very weary of that. And it's a long game. I mean, it took 3-4 years to even, you know, gain this, but it was standing by my thoughts, standing by my opinions, listening to what they had to say, gaining all of their opinions, because they had never, also like engineering and production have this kind of stigma to begin with, that they don't, you know, all engineers, you know, they don't listen to what we have to say. And so it was that's another thing that I really enjoy about my job is I speak with them as the people. Like, people laugh and say like, oh, I'm not the typical engineer because they're behind a computer, you know, punching in, you know, numbers and stuff. But my favorite part is going down and speaking to them. And so it's kind of, it's just, I don't know how to stress it more than it's just the fact that you deserve to be there. But like I said, it's a long game. I mean, it's designing things, seeing if they work, and then saying like, hey, you know, I know what I'm talking about sometimes. And then whenever you don't know what you're talking about, ask questions, get the information that you need, and then, you know, build on that. Because also, you know, you have to be open to learning and to gaining opinions and stuff. And that's what, you just never stop learning.
And to be open to bring up things that you recognize are issues, right? Because it has been my experience that usually they're just not aware that the problem exists because men are not affected by that problem. So, and when they are made aware, they're like, oh, let's fix this. Like, that's horrible, but they didn't know it was happening. So to make sure that you always have a voice and to not be afraid to speak up when you recognize that things could be better, or that this policy or this procedure or whatever this is doesn't fit the same for females as it does for men. And, you know, you'd be really surprised. People are usually like, oh man, I didn't even, because that doesn't affect me, I didn't know that there was not a female restroom on this floor. And so, because they never looked for the female restroom. But they'll usually be quick to work and fix it once they're aware of it, because I don't want to paint a horrible picture of manufacturing for you ladies, because it is a fantastic place to work and so rewarding, but you will come across those things. And I had to work with a man once that, in a training situation, that repeatedly told me there was not 3-phase electric available in this room that I wanted to train in, and looked past me and spoke to the men in the room about having to get 3-phase rain in this room. And I finally just kicked a piece of equipment and said, isn't that a 3-phase outlet right there? And he went, and it took that to gain this man's respect, and never again did he treat me that way, ever again. And so sometimes you have to be your biggest advocate and things like that, because that could have been construed as me being very rude, but I had all I could take. I'm like, here you go.
I think there's other little things, right? Like, I remember distinctly, maybe 8 or so years ago, I read this story about a woman that went to a meeting, and after the meeting, her immediate supervisor said, please don't wear the color red anymore. It's too powerful of a color and it makes people uncomfortable. And I read that story and I was like, man, what a bad piece of advice, right? So anytime that I am going into a meeting, or if I am trying to command a room or to relay an important piece of information, it's red. and that's just like a little anecdotal piece of advice, right? But red lipstick, red shirt, red earrings, red bow in your, I don't wear red. It's a superhero color, right? So if it makes you feel confident, it makes you feel powerful or empowered to say what needs to be said, or to bring up the subject, or to command your audience the way that you're supposed to, do it.
I think that's so important, and I think just be yourself, right? You mentioned being a girl's girl, and not liking to get dirty. Be yourself, and that is okay, and own that, right? I think that that's what commands respect, is authenticity, and no one can judge authenticity but you. So you're the only person that can say, I'm showing up to this table as myself. None of us will know that. You can put on any facade that you want, And I think that if you go through your career knowing that every day, every job, every time, you showed up authentically as yourself, that will command respect automatically, right? You don't have to make anything up. You don't have to be anything that you're not. Show up as you are, and that will get you where you need to go.
And I think that's the story that you've been telling all morning. She has showed up exactly who you are as you are.
Yeah.
And that has paid off for you. So
Absolutely. Well, anybody have any last thoughts? I think that's a great way to potentially close out our conversation, or any additional questions you had on your end, Tracy, that we need to capture for purposes of the universities.
no, I'm good. And if nobody had any further questions or comments, we are now going to, if you guys can hang around for a little bit, we're going to have lunch. So we definitely hope that you stay for lunch. And the videographer is going to do some individual video capture, if you ladies wouldn't mind. Maybe spending a few minutes with him. We have some STEM signs over here somewhere. I put them, or maybe you could write in, something about STEM. We want to capture that. If you haven't already signed your video release and your photo release, if you could sign that and get it back to me so that we could use this in our promotions for ASCENT, OU, Zane State. You don't have to provide consent, but we would love for you to provide consent if you so choose. But please stay for lunch and the video capture, and we appreciate you being here so much.
Thank you, Renee. We really appreciate you joining us as well.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Renee.
Have a great day. We'll have to make a road trip down to Austin Powder.
Sorry you don't get lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Renee.
My name is Haley Cochran. I'm an engineer at HIVAC Corporation, and I am kind of a design engineer. So I do, we work in Creo, so I design sheet metal parts and see that those get manufactured and put on the trucks.
What do you like most about your job?
I am in the production side of engineering, so my favorite part is seeing the guys and going down to the floor and making sure that they have what they need to build the trucks and that kind of communication, not just the computer work. So I get to work a lot with people also and building relationships with people that I work with, and that's one of my favorite things.
How did you get started in that? How did you get started down the path that kind of led you to this job?
When I was a sophomore in high school, I was asked to do, in one of our classes, we were asked to build a simple machine, and so with pulleys and levers and stuff like that, and so I did it fairly quickly, and one of my teachers had said, have you ever considered becoming an engineer? And I hadn't really thought of it before then, but it did seem something that I would love to do. Ever since I was young, I was taking things apart and putting them back together. Very, very curious mind, and so it kind of was very natural for me. So I was very thankful that that teacher suggested that, and that I went on to pursue that career.
Where do you see yourself eventually going with this company in terms of if you continue kind of the course that you're on now?
Yeah, I do. This company has a lot of room for growth, and that's what I've been there for 5 years, and I've never stopped growing, and that's what I think the sky's the limit. I can go into different departments if I prefer, and if I can, they have great opportunities for me. So I haven't stopped growing in 5 years, and I really put the cap on where I want to stop.
What would you say to young women who may be interested in getting into this career field?
This career is, hold on, I got to think about it because we did just talk about it. Is I would suggest, like, advice that I would have for young women in the manufacturing industry is just that they deserve to be there just as much as any of the men, and they have to have that mindset is that they deserve to be there, and don't see things as a challenge, see them as opportunities, and sit at the table.
So my name is Stephanie Jones. I'm a regional manager for TC Energy. So we have assets everywhere from Eastern Ohio to Maryland.
So, could you tell us a little bit about how you got into this line of work? What drove you, what interested you, and what got you really excited about the line of work that you're in right now?
So what got me interested in the energy industry in the first place was just longevity. So there's this opportunity to be an energy problem solver out in the world. And we're seeing a lot of turnover from what were traditional fossil fuels into renewables or sustainables. Really glad to be part of a company that is going to be around for a very, very long time. And working in the industry where we're supplying heat to homes, we're supplying things to businesses, just making sure that the world keeps rolling, and we're a part of that, big part of that.
Do you see limits on what women can do in this career field?
I see no limits to what a woman can do in the energy field. Right now, my company is doing great things where we have women in every level of our company, from frontline employees to senior VPs. You can find a woman in the energy field in every level of our business. And if she is not spending time mentoring someone, whether it be a peer or below her, then she is spending time being mentored by someone above her. And the sky is the limit for each and every one of them.
What would you say to young women who may be interested in getting into this career field?
I think that if you are a woman who wants to be in the energy or manufacturing field, if you're interested in STEM in general, any kind of STEM education, follow the 3 E's, right? So education, exposure, and experience. So take opportunities to participate in any kind of free workshops. If you have the opportunity to go to school, get that education, and then pursue experience. Go out, do internships, do job shadowing, take jobs that wouldn't be traditional jobs that you would have thought that you liked, because those open doors to learning about other positions or careers that might be out there that you can pursue later.
Start with your name and the program.
Hello, I am Maya Johnson, and I am a part of the Electromechanical Engineering Technology program at Zane State. And what inspired me to go into this program is my love of drafting and the use of Inventor.
I'm Isabella Diamato. I study electrical engineering, and what got me into here is my love for math and science. Just really aligned well with engineering.
Where do you see this taking you eventually? What kind of career pathway would you like to get into?
Definitely after I complete my associate's degree here, I want to try and get my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. And then, I don't know. I haven't been asked that.
You have an idea?
Yeah. Wait, what was the question again? Sorry.
After you graduate, what kind of career would you like to get into? What kind of job would you like to get into?
After I graduate, I plan to pursue my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and continue to explore throughout college the different workplaces within the electrical engineering field.
Have you had, I heard you mention you got an internship.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had an internship or any kind of work experience, and how has that helped shape your career pathway?
I currently have an internship at Westerville Electric Division as an electrical engineering intern, and the internship has helped me connect what I learned in the classroom to the workplace and how it fits in there, and the way I can use my knowledge in the workplace has really helped that.
Great. And how about you? Have you had an internship or any work experience?
I have not.
Okay. And see, if you could look back
I would say that it feels a lot more intimidating than it is. Get in there, you'll love it. I love it. You just gotta, it's very intimidating because of the environment, but it really pays off.
I would say the fact that engineering is a very male-dominated field is very intimidating to a lot of people. But once you get in there, studying engineering is really rewarding, and you never really stop learning with engineering. So there's always more to know.
And if I could ask you just a couple of questions about the panel that you just participated in, was there anything that you heard from the women that have been in this field for a little while that you felt like, yeah, that was a really nice piece of advice?
Definitely how inspirational a lot of them were about to always take your seat at the table. I took that very personally because I've always felt like maybe as a woman in engineering I am a little bit out of place, but I think I'm always going to remind myself, and I'm always going to hear the words in the back of my head. I'm going to take that seat at the table. I'm always going to hear it when I have the opportunity.
So what really stuck with me was when they said that's really about how you show your confidence, about how you carry yourself, and that you really need to just know and even show that there's a place for you in engineering among the men, and that'll help also inspire future generations of women in engineering, and that'll be really helpful.
My name is Lindsay Johnson. I'm studying in the bachelor's program at Zane State, BSET, and currently I'm a full-time student at Zane State, but I want to hopefully work at AEP. I'm not exactly sure yet, but somewhere around there. Sorry, I messed that up.
Great. And what inspired you to get into this line of work?
The opportunity that I had, definitely. I was a sophomore in high school, and my guidance counselor came to me and said that there's a thing called CCP, College Credit Plus, and you can join it, basically go to college during high school, get your high school credits while you're in the college also, so that last year as a junior in high school, I got my associate's degree in electrical engineering, and then this year I'm a senior in high school, so hopefully next year I'll get my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering.
And you already mentioned that you are hoping to work in the electric industry. Why the electric industry?
Math. I love math. I've always loved math, and I was able to sit down with the counselor here at the college, and she helped me decide exactly what I wanted to do based off my strengths and weaknesses and my interests especially. So.
And if you could look back at your 5th, 6th, 7th grade self, or girls that are that age now, is there anything that you would tell them that might help them get into STEM-related career fields?
To just go ahead and do it. If you want to do it, and if you're interested in it, if you're interested in the material especially, just go ahead and do it. You're going to find so many relationships and so many different strengths that you might not have even known that you've had, and you'll find a lot of fulfillment in actually going for what you wanted to go for.
And related to the focus group that you just participated in, is there anything that you heard from some of the women who've been in these professions for the last several years that you feel like you're going to take away from that conversation?
Stepping out of your comfort zone more often is so helpful, and taking advantage of the opportunities that you're given, well, you'll never regret it. I mean, you're stepping out of your comfort zone is like you don't want to do it, but you do it, you don't regret it, and you actually get more experience, more opportunities by doing something that you might not have even wanted to do. So if you're interested, if you might want to do it, go ahead and do it. You're not going to regret it.
All right. Marquita Thomas, Chief Strategy Officer for Zane State College, as well as the Executive Director for Enterprise Muskingum.
So, reflecting on the focus group that we just had, wondering if you could talk a little bit about your personal journey and sort of how you arrived at the work that you do. Okay. Let's start there.
All right. I am new to higher ed and nonprofit work. I come by way of business and industry, where I spent 29 years, and I was in the energy sector. I left my previous employer as the head of employee development and learning. And in that role, I did a lot of work on creating pathways for employment for many of our underrepresented groups. And I had a particular interest in women in non-traditional fields, and I get a chance to do that work here at Zane State. And Enterprise Muskingum is a cradle to career organization that's focused on the learning outcomes for the children in Muskingum County. So we're really focusing on how to look at that continuum from early childhood education all the way through high school graduation, and helping our children get ready for college, ready to enter the workforce, and really putting them on the path to economic mobility. So I believe that my previous career, 29 years in the space of focusing on people, developing people, and training them, has really prepared me for this work here today.
Why is it so important for young women to get into STEM careers?
So I think that as we think about the future of the workforce, there's a demand for qualified, capable workers. And if we continue to look in the same spaces and the areas that we have for some of these non-traditional careers, we will yield the same results. So I believe that it's critically important to think a little bit differently and to shift the paradigm about who we see successful in these roles, and that includes women and folks from underrepresented groups. I think that women bring a depth of empathy, which is critically important to the workforce, their ability to really think through things through end to end. It's not to say that it's any different and it's not gender specific, but I do think that women bring a wonderful quality and a wonderful diversity of thought to all spaces, particularly STEM.
And you just had a wonderful roundtable or a focus group discussion. Can you think of anything that you took away from that work, that focus group, that sort of really stimulated you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was just blown away by our panel, particularly the students. And, you know, it had me thinking back many years ago when I was that young, and the opportunities that were either presented to me or things that I didn't know about. So I'm really excited that we have a group of students that are really embracing the opportunity to get into some STEM career roles, but it also highlighted for me, which I share, is, you know, they've had individual opportunities to participate. We need to open up those doors of access and opportunity for all students. We don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough mentors, we don't have enough guardian angels for each person to put their hand on the shoulders of our young people one at a time. We really need to change the systems in terms of how we allow our students to get career exposure and opportunities in order to advance and to select a career and a role that's really going to help them thrive in the future. So one other thing that I would also add in terms of the work for us is really supporting them and making sure that we provide the mentorship that's necessary. And it's not just a one touch, but it's actually figuring out how to link arms with our students and our young women and take the journey with them so that they can be successful.